Ethereal Summit in Tel Aviv, the first ever Ethereal Summit in Tel Aviv. I'm sitting here with the man of the hour. Everybody was waiting for Vitalik Buterin this morning. Needless to say, an amazing AMA. Vitalik, thank you for being with us here at BLOCKTV. If you were to mark the most important phase for Ethereum in the next couple of months, what would it be?
The most important phase? Like, what do you mean by that?
What's the most important thing that's about to happen, gunning for 2.0?
I think the launch of a public testnet. A public multi-client testnet, 7 implementations interoperating, all of those things. Because that's going to basically prove that Ethereum 2.0 can function as a fully functioning live network. And the things that we've seen so far, like we have different in single client testnets, we've had different clients, some agreeing with each other, we've had consensus tests, we've had a lot of different things happening, but that next milestone would really be the one that kind of puts everything together. And that's something that we haven't seen yet. And I think once that happens, then a lot more people will be able to see that, like, hey, Ethereum 2.0 is real.
Amen to that. What are the things that stand? What are your concerns about it? How can it fail?
I think the main thing that developers are concerned about right now is peer-to-peer networking. So sharded blockchains are fundamentally a kind of fairly novel experiment in a bunch of fundamental ways. And one of them is that they differ from existing blockchain networks, because in an existing blockchain network, everyone downloads everything. And so you're totally fine with having a network that's designed around everyone downloading everything. But in a sharded blockchain, this is not true, right? Every node only processes a small portion of the network because there's too much stuff for everyone to process. Now, we've had this in peer-to-peer networks historically. So, for example, BitTorrent, great example of a peer-to-peer network. It's been alive for over 15 years, and it has the property that there's lots more stuff than any single computer can download, and it's worked fine. But what we haven't had is that style of network plus the need for nodes to come to consensus and be able to reliably download and verify things. And if combining those things together and creating this peer-to-peer network architecture where you have lots of different implementations talking to each other, and you can split up the network into sub-networks, so different kind of work can happen in different pieces, and then it all gets brought together. Those are the things that haven't tried before. But we have what I think are really great and dedicated engineering teams and collaborators, and I think we stand a really good chance of doing a great job.
I want to ask you a bit of a general question. You're born in Russia, right? Okay, grew up in Canada. To me, you're a product of completely what globalization should be. The idea behind Ethereum, the idea behind Bitcoin as well, is a new ideology, one could argue. But do you think the world is ready? People.
Has the world ever been ready for anything new that's come? Was the world ready for the internet? Was the world ready for cars? Was it ready for high-speed trains? And I think to some extent, humanity has got to roll with the punches and enjoy the massively uplifting benefits.
Massively uplifting, but humanity needs to be on board with it, and we seem to be far away from mass adoption. Why?
I agree, and I think the technology is definitely not ready in its current form. I think there's still a lot of challenges around safety, usability, privacy, and I've been really happy in the last year because we've seen a lot of strides in that direction. We've seen some huge development in multi-sig wallets and social recovery, for example, things that I've been yelling at people to make for years, and now they're finally happening. Yeah, privacy mixers are finally happening. Usability improvements are happening. Scalability improvements are happening. And in some ways I am happy that the technology is kind of getting better slowly, because it does mean that the world has an opportunity to have more time to get used to it. You don't want these kinds of things to just take over too quickly. But at the same time, things have been improving, and more people are coming on board, and the blockchains are kind of slowly becoming useful for more and more use cases. Problems are being solved. So I think there's lots of cause to be optimistic.
Cause to be optimistic. Many would argue that it's been a year that has seen the introduction, the announcement of Libra, and that's helped the sphere move along, irrespective of the fact that we can argue that Libra itself is not necessarily a cryptocurrency.
Yeah, Libra.
Is it good or bad? That's what I'm asking.
Libra has shaken up the space in interesting ways. And it's definitely shown a lot of people that cryptocurrencies are real and it's something that is going to happen on a large scale. And existing institutions need to be prepared for it and kind of find ways to join and prosper from the game themselves. And we've been seeing kind of central banks think about how to do that. And now, I definitely don't think that there's anything like a kind of death match between Libra and existing crypto systems, as some people like to say, because Libra has something that existing blockchains don't, which is existing access to 2.5 billion users, and existing crypto systems have something that Libra doesn't, which is a kind of credible claim to commercial and political neutrality, and that's something that anything developed by kind of centralized institutions is just fundamentally not going to have. And it's something that in the crypto space has a unique chance of providing.
Because you're, getting a chance to speak with you, I'm fascinated with the idea of a launch that will happen before Libra, and that's the Gram that's upcoming at the end of October. Clearly not a big use case.
It's what that's coming at the end of October?
The Tons launch.
The Telegram.
Exactly, the Telegram. Again, not 2.3 billion people, but 250 million users. Do you think that'll have a disrupting effect?
It depends. I guess, first of all, what they're claiming technologically is a lot. They're claiming a massively sharded blockchain that can handle up to 2 to the power of 92 partitions and a fully smart contract capable system and all of those things. And that's not the sort of thing that you just successfully push out into the world without a lot of work and testing and public testing. And so definitely worth watching, but at the same time it's also important to be realistic about kind of what's possible in these kinds of areas.
Entirely so, and I like the politically correct answer. Asking you about, you're very young, Vitalik. You entered the sphere. You're one of the biggest names when it comes to marketing the sphere. What attracted you into it to begin with?
Yeah, and I guess when I got into even just Bitcoin for the first time, I was always excited about the potential for the space to create a more kind of open and accessible financial system. Back then I was 17 and I didn't have a credit card, and so Bitcoin just enabled me to buy things online, and that felt very empowering. And in addition to kind of just empowering me as a consumer, one things that consumer payment systems do terribly is making it easy for people to accept money. And Bitcoin is fully neutral in that regard. It's just as easy to be a merchant as it is to be a consumer. You're not just a drone. It empowers you to be a fully participating member of the economy, and that's something that got me excited. And also just the fact that there is this kind of open source core. Anyone can participate. Anyone can understand how it works and even be part of running the network and writing the code. And Ethereum was always about kind of taking those values and expanding them and kind of carrying them over to not just a single cryptocurrency, but also this broader concept of decentralized applications.
And before I get to another question about Ethereum, we're sitting in Israel, and what you mentioned on stage was that this can also go into forms of governance. Elections here are a day away. Why do you think that in 2019, when it's such a big issue about credibility, about the transparency of government process, do you see that happening on the blockchain in the future?
Yeah, blockchain voting is an interesting one. Cryptographers are very scared of electronic voting on all forms, whether blockchain or not, and they have some good reasons for this because computers are fallible, computers can get hacked, centralized systems are fallible, and so forth. And when you make a voting system on an open platform that makes it very easy for you to prove what happened, then there's other risks. So for example, you could have smart contracts for buying votes. And so there are genuine risks that the cryptographers are worried about, that I'm worried about too. But at the same time, I do think that ultimately political systems need to evolve and adapt to the 21st century. And if all that democracy provides each citizen is just like 1 or 2 bits of input every 4 years, then it's just like gonna have a hard time of prospering and adapting to this century. And I think we do need to take more seriously the idea that like activity happens online more and more, because online and on a device is just fundamentally more convenient, and we need to just bite the bullet and figure out how to make that work more safely. And we're actually like supporting and funding some efforts to try to do that. So our zero knowledge cryptography team is doing several projects, like a mixer is one of them, but one of the others is this infrastructure that basically allows coercion resistant voting. So this basically means it's a voting scheme where it's like all smart contract based, but it's designed using a combination of encryption, zero knowledge proofs, and some other technologies in such a way that if you participate, then not only does no one learn like how you participated, you can't prove to someone how you voted, so you don't have the ability to kind of credibly sell your vote even if you wanted to, but like the mechanics of the game are fully secure and are fully verified, and everyone learns what the answer is, and they get a cryptographic proof that the answer was calculated correctly. And so I think, yeah, and I think like one of the things that the Ethereum community can provide to society is just to serve as a test bed for these kinds of experiments and try them out at small scales internally, and just see how they work, and if and when they succeed, let them expand from there.
What would you say to critics of Ethereum that scalability is still not solved? People, at the end of the day, the sphere is filled with people who are criticizing one another. It's one of the main things. What would you answer to them? Is all that criticism also necessary for progress?
I mean, criticism is totally necessary. I mean, even just
Trolling.
Yeah, I mean, even just this morning, like I criticized a bunch of DeFi stuff, even though I love the promise of DeFi and I really want to see a good, high-quality projects in that space succeed. I mean, I criticize the current stuff because I want things to succeed. In the case of scalability, I think honestly, a lot of the critics are behind the times. Like, they still say that, Casper and sharding are just ideas and they're never going to work, when in reality we have an almost finalized spec for one and interoperable like test nets, and being on the verge of a public test net for the other. So, like, you got to engage with the stuff as it actually exists and update what the criticisms are. And there's definitely people that have kind of good, sophisticated criticisms that we've taken to heart, but then there also are people just like saying, what happens when you can't verify literally every block? And like, these are questions that we've just answered so many times in so many contexts. So, and ultimately, I guess, the final proof that we're right is when there is a live working network, and I'm so excited about that.
I'm also releasing you. Where do you see that? Where do you see Ethereum within 5 years and your role in it?
Ethereum 2.0 will be live. It'll be sharded. It'll be Casper-y. It'll be ghosty, and it'll be great. And we'll see a lot of live applications running in it, whether it's open financial systems or different kinds of tools for decentralized collaboration, or like everything large and small, from like community currencies to like auctioning conference tickets to voting. And just like a platform where people build these kinds of things. And
Find there's enough building on the platform at this point?
I think so. I think the building's improved a lot in the last year, and I guess I mentioned the privacy projects, the wallets, the kind of second wave of DAOs, the decentralized finance stuff. I mean, even just the Uniswap, for example, I'm always a huge fan of, because it's just made it so easy to exchange between one token and another. And the number of things happening is just huge. And like, if you just go to any Ethereum hackathon, the kind of projects you see are just so impressive.
Finally, you're about to take the stage once again in this first ever Ethereal Summit in Tel Aviv with Yoni Asi, I believe. Sorry, you're getting on stage right now to do what?
We're getting on stage, and what was that?
What are you going to do on stage right now? What are you going to tell us on stage?
What am I going to tell you on stage? I don't know yet. I mean, it depends on what questions people ask. I'm happy to answer lots of questions, you know.
Coming up, Vitalik Buterin here at the Ethereal Summit in Tel Aviv. Oh my word. We were BLOCKTV. We will be right back.
For more news and updates, follow us on Twitter.